8. The big stretch. Raising incomes among a small group of Americans led to that group breaking away in lifestyle. They bought bigger homes, nicer cars, went to expensive schools, and took fancy vacations, and everyone else was watching. Fueled by Madison Avenue in the 80s and 90s and the internet after that. The lifestyles of a small portion of legitimately rich Americans inflated the aspirations of the majority of Americans whose incomes weren't rising. A culture of equality and togetherness that came out of the 1950s to 1970s innocently morphs into a keeping up with the Joneses effect. Now you can see the problem. Joe, an investment banker making $900,000 a year, buys a 4,000 square foot house with two Mercedes and sends three of his kids to Pepperdine. He can afford it. Peter, a bank manager making $80,000 a year, sees Joe and feels a subconscious sense of entitlement to live a similar lifestyle because Peter's parents believed and instilled in him that Americans' lifestyle weren't that different even if they had different jobs. His parents were right during their era because incomes fell into a tight distribution, but that was then. Peter lives in a different world, but his expectations haven't changed much from his parents', even if the facts have. So what does Peter do? He takes out a huge mortgage. He has $45,000 of credit card debt. He leases two cars. His kids will graduate with heavy student loans. He can't afford the stuff Joe can, but he's pushed to stretch for the same lifestyle. It's a big stretch. This would have seemed preposterous to someone in the 1930s, but we have spent 75 years since the end of the war fostering a cultural acceptance of household debt. During a time when median wages were flat, the median new American home grew 50% larger. The average new American home now has more bathrooms than occupants. Nearly half have 4 or more bedrooms, up from 18% in 1983. The average car loan adjusted for inflation more than doubled between 1975 and 2003, from $12,300 to $27,900. And you know what happened to college costs and student loans? Household debt to income stayed about flat from 1963 to 1973. Then it climbed and climbed and climbed, and around 60% in 1973 to more than 130% by 2007. Even as interest rates plunged from the early 1980s through 2020, the percentage of income going to debt service payments rose, and it's skewed toward lower income groups. The share of income going toward debt and lease payments is just over 8% of the highest income groups, those with the biggest income gains, but over 21% of those below the 50th percentile. The difference between this climbing debt and the debt increase that took place during the 1950s and 60s is that the recent jump started from a high base. Economist Hyman Minsky described the beginning of debt crisis. The moment when people take on more debt than they can service, it's an ugly, painful moment. It's like Wile E. Coyote looking down, realizing he's screwed and falling precipitously, which of course is what happened in 2008.